Conversations, Christ Center. Conversations, Christ Center. Conversations, Christ Center. Conversations, Christ Center.
Ghana generates approximately 1.1 million tons of plastic waste annually, according to a World Bank report. Alarmingly, only about 5% of this is recycled. The rest ends up in open spaces, landfills, water bodies, and gutters. Urban centers like Accra, Kumasi, and Takoradi bear the brunt of this crisis. Walk through any market or street corner and you will find plastic debris strewn about, an unsettling symbol of convenience turned into a crisis. Comparatively, Ghana produces between 800,000 to 1 million metric tons of cocoa beans each year, the country's #1 export commodity. This juxtaposition reveals a sobering reality. Ghana is producing more plastic waste than cocoa, which historically has become the bedrock of its economy. This trend is not just an environmental concern, it is an economic and social red flag. This is from an article from the University of Environment and Sustainable Development by Professor Edward Biafidebra, an environmentalist and the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the university. This is RessHour Podcast, a 1-hour real conversation, Christ-centered. My name is Carissa Enim, and I am your host for today. We are proudly sponsored by Swiss Ice Drinking Water and D's Classic. We'll go on a short break. Stay glued to your seat, and we will be right back.
Conversations, Christ Center.
Welcome back. This is the RessHour Podcast. My guest for today is a lecturer of the University of Ghana and a presbyter of the Resurrection Congregation in the person of Dr. Jones Pakpa Korti. Doc, you are welcome to RessHour Podcast.
Thank you very much.
Our topic for today, safeguarding the environment. We'll delve right into our conversation. And like my introduction said, we are comparing the #1 export commodity of this country to the waste that we are making as a country. Doc, tell us how serious this is to Ghana.
All right, thank you very much for the question. But I would like to start on the global level.
Okay.
It is not just to Ghana.
Right.
When we talk about plastics, plastic, in most of the publications you read, they use the word ubiquitous, which means it's everywhere. Wherever you go, you find plastic. To the extent that I would like to shock my viewers, even in very, should I say, in some continents where you even don't have human habitation, there are plastics there. So Antarctica, there have been records of plastics. And this is very, very, very strange to the ears. You go to places like the Arctics, Greenland and all that, you have plastics over there. And this is because the generation point of plastics do not necessarily mean that will be the end point of the transport of plastics. What I mean is, if we should generate plastics here in Ghana, it doesn't mean the plastics will be confined to our coast. You may end up finding plastics produced in Ghana somewhere in South America based on the way the sea waves move. So it is a global canker rather than a national problem. And this is so huge. You were mentioning some figures about 1.1 million metric tons per year. It will interest you that from the 70s to 2017, Ghana has produced over 9 billion metric tons of plastic. And only 2 billion has been recycled. You ask yourself, where are the 7 billion metric tons of microplastics, of plastics? And all this plastic, for some reason, find their way into the ocean, the water bodies, and some of them buried in the soil. And this is where the problem starts. It is a big problem because in the ocean, there is no way the plastics are going to degenerate or break down because plastics are made up of very, very hard polymers. What I mean by polymers are long chains of hydrocarbons. And these, under heat and pressure, will not break down and degenerate into the environment. No. You're rather having them breaking down into smaller particles. So they are still in the system. And day in, day out, they end up causing problems for us. Some of the problems we are already seeing, choking gutters, creating lots of floods here and there. So you mentioned of some social issues, some economic issues. Yes, you are getting monies from selling cocoa beans, but you end up spending that money in handling the plastics. So plastics are very, 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 very important now. One of the new areas people are researching into, how are we able to manage these plastics? They are very, very, very important because they are causing a lot of problems, health-wise, socially, economically, and to some extent, politically.
Plastics are, it's going a long way to harm us as a country. So since this has been realized, Doc, what is the government doing about this canker? What has the government put in place? Because research has told us that we are just recycling about 5%. Now, what is happening to the rest of these plastics?
All right. So, again, from the global scale, you can even talk about the challenge, but when we talk about Ghanaian settings, we try to learn from those that have advanced in managing plastics, and they have not even been having it easy. So in Ghana, for instance, we have institutions that are supposed to manage our waste. And a chunk of the waste we produce these days are made up of plastic. In the past, we used to have a lot of organic matter. These days, the organic matter is not really a problem, but then the plastics. The government has tried as much as possible to increase the capacity of managing these plastic waste in the system. But the problem has to do with the production of plastics waste in the system. The recycling plants or the waste management plants are not able to match the production, and that is the problem. Right. So, for instance, if any of the waste management institutions could take, let's say, a metric ton of plastic to manage in a day, the country is producing over 100 million. So you see that there's a backlog. And this backlog is what is creating the problem here. So the government is doing its part. Other institutions are also doing their part by creating awareness and all that. But it all boils down to the infrastructure. If you don't have a very good infrastructure, then it becomes very difficult. And for us, plastic waste remains waste. But elsewhere, in these developed countries, the reason why they are able to handle their plastic waste is that the waste becomes raw material in a different sector. So there is nothing like waste in the system, all right? I was listening to one documentary where there is this setting where you have waste serving as raw material for the next sector. So at the end of the day, they may start with a certain amount of waste, but end up with very, very tiny waste that, of course, is also very friendly, eco-friendly. But here in this country, the waste remains waste, and we have the waste piling up over time. So until we are able to expand in that regards, turn our waste into raw materials for other sectors, we will still have this issue dealing with plastic waste.
Turn our waste into raw materials for other sectors. So these industries, the industries that are producing products that end up giving us these plastics,
Yes.
are they in any way cautioned, or are they in any way finding ways to help us with managing these plastics that they are producing? Because they are producing something for us, like sachet water. They are producing sachet water for us. But after we drink the water, what are you as an industry doing for the country?
Yes, very interesting, very interesting. So we do have policies that have been formulated by the government, but the problem has to do with enforcement of these policies. We all learn from those who have excelled in managing certain aspects of their economy or environment. There is a principle that anybody who has a phone right now can Google, polluter pays principle. And this principle has been applied in various sectors, even in climate change, in plastic waste management and all that. So any institution that is producing a certain material owes the environment the duty of managing any waste that is being generated out of that production. So for instance, you mentioned the pure water and whatever, these, excuse me, you mentioned these beverage companies and all that. They owe the nation a mandate of helping clean the environment of the waste they are generating indirectly. So what it means is a part of the money that they receive from sales of these products are channeled into managing the waste that they produce. But whether these things are enforced is a different issue. I wouldn't want to go into that area. But elsewhere, that is what they do. So you buying a bottle of a beverage drink for 2 cedis, the actual cost is just about 1 cedi, 30 pesos. The 70 pesos goes into managing the waste that will be created in the environment. But we are not doing such, or we are not actually practicing such in this country, and that is why we have all these issues. So the institutions, indeed, they owe the nation a duty of helping clean, permit me to use the word, mess they create right from the word go.
The industries owe the nation a duty. Yes. And we all hope that they are doing what they are expected to do. We all hope that. So with the health of the individuals, now it seems like it has come to stay, unfortunately.
Yes.
So it's now about the health of the individuals of the nation.
Yes.
What is this plastic doing to our health?
Okay.
How is it getting to the point where we say that the plastic is not helping us. Yesterday, I was walking through the streets of Accra, and I was being cautious to check something. Every step I took, I saw a plastic.
Yes.
Every step.
Yes.
Not like every 2 steps. Every step I took, I saw something, plastic. I saw rubbish. I saw waste. I saw something. And I kept asking myself, so if maybe the government is not able to get to the limit to which they are supposed to get to, and our industries are also not doing what they are supposed to do, we as the individuals, what are we actually doing? And are we thinking of the fact that this particular mess we are in is affecting us in the long run? Doc, what do you have to tell us?
All right, so I see 2 questions in this.
Yes.
One, the health. The other one is what individuals are doing. Okay, so I'll start with the health. If we have had this conversation some 20 years ago, I will limit my discussion to what we call macroplastics. So what you have been seeing with your naked eye, the rubbers, the litters here and there, is known as macroplastics because these are very huge plastics you can see with your naked eye. For that, the only challenge or the greatest of challenges we face with macroplastics is choking of gutters and all that leads to flood. So 20 years, 30 years ago, issues with plastic wasn't really much of a say. People were not really concerned about that. But now, what we are seeing is different. So I got some money from some huge money to do some research on water quality. So I had, together with my team, we had different sets of students working on these plastics. And it will interest you to know the kind of results they found. So we had one group working on fish that were caught from our lagoons and the sea. We had another group working on sachet water as well as bottled water, what we call pure water, drinking water. A third group was also working on beverages.
Right.
And so on and so forth, to the extent that currently what we are trying to do is to look at the extent of the pollution. So we have that group going into the wilderness where we believe humans are not really there, collecting samples for us to analyze. And in the lab, this is what we found. We've moved from the macroplastic, and now we are talking about microplastics or nanoplastics. So what microplastic simply means is if you have, let's say, a millimeter, divide that millimeter by 1,000, and that gives you micro. So that is so small, very tiny. I was watching one documentary from one of the media houses, and they were referring microplastic to the strands of the air. That is wrong, because the strand of the air, you can see it. This you cannot see with your naked eye. You only need aided eye, that is the microscopes, to look or to be able to envisage these. And we have tons of microplastics in all these samples that we analyzed. Now, what do they do? So imagine you are feeding on fish. You wouldn't see the plastics. So you just take in the fish, and the plastic is building in your system. The earlier conversation was that when you take in the fish, it goes through your alimentary canal, that's the gut. So if it's within the gut, you still pass it out as stool. So that is not a problem. But now, even in the fish, we've seen that there is transfer or cross-border between the gut and the tissues. And that is where it's becoming alarming. When you have these plastics perforating the gut walls and entering into the tissues, what happens is, in the tissues, they upset the cells. So then your system will also give an autoimmune response. Just now, if you have, let's say, a foreign object entering into your mouth, you try to cough out because the system would then kick that immune response just so that you bring it out. And that is what our cells are doing. And because the cells are fighting these foreign bodies over time, they get stressed. So sometimes you wake up in the morning and you have all these pains here and there. It could be that the cells are responding to the plastics in the system. Also, you may have some gastrointestinal infection and all that is because it could be the plastics that are creating that. In the water that we've been taking, if we had a bottle of water here, I would have demonstrated it. You see the water there sitting very nicely, calm and all that. But in the water, you are likely to have some microplastics. And this is because of our storage mechanisms. And in treating water for these industries, a lot of them would do all the necessary water quality tests, which include the physicochemical parameters, so the pH, the temperature, conductivity, and all that, which is good for the body. Some will go to an extent and do microbiological tests so that they are able to kill all these pathogens that are likely to cause certain diseases like cholera, dysentery, typhoid, and all that. But I am not sure any of the water producing companies carry out microplastic tests. The assumption is they are able to arrest all these microplastics when they use filters that are supposed to filter all the pathogens from getting into the final stage. The microplastics are also arrested. But interestingly, some of the plastics are able to perforate these filters and then enter into the final water. So in the human system, you have the plastics creating lots of problems. Recent research has shown that these plastics are affecting our hormonal system. So they attack the endocrine glands. And anybody who knows about the endocrine glands knows that it is a very, very important part of our body because they are in charge of almost every metabolism that is going on, provision of energy, growth hormones, and all that. So if these glands are compromised, what it means is that you are likely to give birth to a child, and the child will have abnormal growth. So stunted growth or gigantism, you can't understand. And this is because of these plastics there. You could also have the plastics into the gentlemen. It is very important you listen to this part. We've identified, or research has shown that evidence of plastics in the system are likely to cause fertility issues.
Wow.
Because they are able to get into the tissues. And when they go into the tissues, they affect the testes. Of course, you have hormones that are being secreted, the testosterone and all that. And these affect the level of potent sperms you have in the spermatozoa. And that affects overall fertility of a person. Again, in the women as well, the ovaries are also compromised. You have children as girls as young as 9, 10 years already experiencing puberty. Mm-hmm. And these are the accelerative aspects of the microplastic in the system. What is alarming is some plastic have also been found in the cardiovascular system, which is the heart and the blood vessels, all right? So in that system already, we are battling with issues of stroke, blood pressure and all that because of closure of the diameter or the lumen of our blood vessels as a result of saturated fat depositing in these walls. Now the plastics have also gotten involved. So what it means is that you have a shorter period of time for you to have a lot of deposition that will close the wall completely. And this will create a lot of blood pressure, hypertension, and possibly stroke. So this is where we've got into. And it is alarming because you don't see these plastics. Yeah. We buy water instead of keeping the water in a cool, hairy place, we may leave them in the sun. And now, there is also a different approach here, or you can look at it from these two angles. One group of my students, their research showed that the best water to take is the water that is kept in the sun. So the women who have been selling their water in the cages exposed to the sunlight, and the reason is the sunlight has ultraviolet radiation, which when shined on the water is able to kill all the bacteria that will be causing certain pathogenic diseases for us, like salmonella bacteria and all that. But the other way around, you have the ultraviolet radiation causing leaching of the plastics into the water. So this is what we call Hobson's choice. Will you keep the water in the sun, get all the bacteria dealt with, and then take in plastics, or you keep the water in the room where the bacteria will still be in the system, but then the plastic levels are down? I don't have an answer to this. In fact, scientists, we don't have answers to this. It is a human attitude or behavior. So there are some people who don't have the luxury of even keeping water inside their rooms because of their numbers and the size of the room. So they'll prefer to keep it outside. They may be safe from having all these pathogens that will cause zoonotic diseases here and there, but then they'll be exposed to lots of plastics. And you have the comfort of keeping your water in the room or even in the fridge, but then you'll be exposed to a lot of pathogens, but then the plastic levels will be down. So it is not a matter of here nor there. It has to do with our daily lifestyle and what presents finally to us. So we try as much as possible to regulate or manage the consumption of these plastic. But whether we can do that is a different discussion altogether.
Oh, this is an interesting topic. I would like to appreciate our sponsors. I'll come back on the particular discussion here, but I would like to appreciate our sponsors. We are proudly sponsored by Sweet Eyes Drinking Water. You would find them at Kaswa Brigade. Contact them on 055 9410411, and also these classics, classy fits only. Contact them on 05965666262. You locate them at Old Dansoman, Kashimi Street. You are either here nor there. You choose where you want to be. You choose your own path. But, Doc, oh, wow. Very interesting. It's an interesting one, yes. Yeah. So, like, about the water. We don't know if now we should put it in the sun. We should leave it in the sun. Or we should leave it in our rooms. What I've heard in the past was that, I just mix up a lot of things, was that our water was being sold and we were taking one cup. Yes. Now with polythene, gamebake ameke abahe yebami, and you know that bar, yes. Especially when you put wachi and beans in it. My oh my. So, is it okay? Like, what is your advice to us pertaining to that? We cannot go back to the one cup because I don't know if I am right, but I know when the person is selling it, it's the same cup that I use that will be given to the next person. We are looking at the health bit there, and we cannot be carrying cups in our bags everywhere we go. You cannot be going for a wedding and you are all dressed up, looking all slayed, And then you have a cup in your bag that per chance you would want to buy water and you would have to use. So what is your advice to us when it comes to that aspect?
All right. So yes, some 20, 30 years ago, buying water in town, yes, you have to use the cup and all that. During that time, I told you we were not having discussion about these plastics. So the bone of contention then was whether to continue to sell water in the cups when it exposes us to certain pathogens, because the dust is filled with lots of pathogens. They only need a good ground to activate themselves. So that was the discussion then. So it was advised that, okay, let's just try and get a convenient way of packaging our water. So we started with penning, depenning.
Yes.
And even with that, all capacity building or advocacy was tailored towards screening the water such that you don't have a lot of pathogens going in there. So in homes where this penning were being actually produced, you have foams in the funnels that they were using to strain all the dust and the dirt and all that, yes. Because plastic wasn't an issue there. But now, it's like you try to solve one problem and then knowledge exposes you to a different problem. So currently, we are looking at handling the plastic issue. So what we are seeing now is, of course, we can't go back to that approach. That is a no-go area. But then, the little advice I can give is, we all try to get a reusable plastic bottle, or what we call PET bottles. So PET is polyethylene terephthalate, PHTHALATES. Now, these are bottles that, of course, you can reuse them, but then they help you a lot to get clean, potable water and use it for a very long time. And when you are getting such a bottle, make sure you get the one that has the aluminum lining. The aluminum lining. So if you look at a typical thermoflask, it has a plastic outer cover, and then it has an aluminum lining in there. In between the aluminum lining and the plastic, you have a non-conductive material. Some people call it caco or whatever, yes. It prevents energy transfer between the two surfaces. That is what you can use. But then again, you also need a dispenser at home. The dispensers have been manufactured such that they have filters that will be filtering all these bacteria and even some of the plastics. So before leaving the house, you fetch your water. And then, if the water is chilled, because of that non-conductive material between the aluminum lining and the plastic, you still have your water chilled for a very long period of time for you. So these reusable bottles are a bit expensive, but it is better than the single-use plastics. The problem we have is we are using too many single-use plastics. What I mean by single-use plastic are you just use it today and you just let go of it. So like the disposable cups, disposable spoons, even the normal bottle that we have our water in there, yes, most of them are disposable, but some of them are also being made out of the PETs, so they can be recycled. The less disposable single-use plastic we use in the system, the less contamination or pollution we would be rendering to the environment. And that is the first point of start. That is what we need to do. So we all go in for reusable bottles. We have our dispensers. We have our clean water. Wherever we go, we use it. In fact, if you run short of water, you can walk into any bank. They have dispensers over there. With your bottle, you can then refill it. And I'm sure this is going to serve a lot of good for us, because you are managing the microplastic that you are ingesting, at the same time doing the environment a lot of good by reducing the amount of single-use plastic we release into the environment.
Yeah. Okay, right. You can send your comments to any of our social media platforms you are watching from, and we'll read it. We appreciate you. We appreciate all our viewers. Doc, if I know you dispenser sani, and no quali, meko meyeni dispenser menya meheko.
Yeah.
Ni nuedenche amenya mehe. Ewo no huete ameba filete.
So you can also use the alternative. The filters are being sold. All right? You can get good filters at relatively cheaper cost. And then you can filter your own water at home. The thing is, you cannot rule out every single microplastic that is entering into your system. No. But you try as much as possible to reduce the quantity that enters into your system. Because we have what we call bioaccumulation. It's just a big word with a simple meaning. Bio means life. Accumulation, aggregation. So you are actually adding on to the plastic volume inside your system. Don't forget that your system doesn't have the capacity of breaking down the plastics in your system. No. Your digestive system would have very strong enzymes that will act on different compounds, but not plastics. It's because of what plastics is made up of. It has strong bonds that you need heat and pressure to break. And even you breaking is just breaking it down into a simpler substance. But this simpler substance is not biodegradable. And that's why we have a lot of microplastics in the system. So you will still have the plastic in your system, but you regulate the quantity or the amount that goes in at a time. Don't forget that now we also have records of plastic contamination in the air. Because these microplastics are so thin, they are so less dense that the wind can easily blow them. So they are already in the environment. Will you tell me you'll be working with nose mask all the time? Not forgetting that the nose masks are also made up of plastics. Yes. So you also have the plastics leaching into your system directly. So we try as much as possible to manage what enters into our system, but it doesn't mean we can totally, yes, we cannot totally prevent every single plastic from entering. We will have some entering in the system, but then we manage it. So those who cannot afford dispensers, you can get the filters and manage that at home.
Okay, those who cannot afford dispensers, get filters and manage that at home. This is still the RessHour Podcast. We'll go for a short break. Stay glued to your seats. Please don't take any step away from your screen. We will be right back.
Conversations, Kai Center. Conversations, Kai Center. Conversations, Kai Center.
Hey, where class? Where class? Why? Welcome back. This is still the RessHour Podcast, and our conversation for today is on safeguarding the environment. We still have our doc here in the person of Dr. Jones Corte, who is our guest speaker for today. So, right into our conversation. Doc, please, what are some of the, I think we have spoken about what we as individuals can do to help us. We have come to accept and agree that we cannot totally ignore the fact that microplastics have become part of us. Plastics have become part of us. Microplastics have become part of us. But I believe that we as young people, we can also be the ones, we can also be the main people to help eradicate, not 100%, but eradicate this whole plastic pollution thing, in the sense that I know that this Generation Z and Generation Alpha, sometimes they can correct their parents more than the way their parents will correct them. So we can also use them as our means. About 2 weeks ago, I'd closed from work and I was going home when a young guy I saw on the street, I think he was eating bread or something. He had the polythene in his hand and then he dropped it. Tamoboni ganyubaka keshi inle boni ba binin ke. That point, I don't know the point at which I just told him, pick it. And then he did pick it and he put it in his pocket. I think that is also something we can look at. I can help the country, same as the country can help me. Doc, what will you tell us as individuals of the country, and then how to talk to our young people to help eradicate this whole plastic pollution, even pollution in general?
So this is interesting, well, so there should be an overall change in our behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay? And for you to have a behavioral change, certain measures need to be put in place. You want your citizens to keep the country
Clean.
Yet still, the provision of, let's say, dustbins or waste, whatever, disposal, whatever centers,
Limited.
are getting filled up by the day. Currently, in Accra, almost all our landfill sites are full. All our landfill sites are full. So these tricycles that have been coming to our homes to collect rubbish and all that, you could also tell that they are charging outrageously. And it's because when they get to these landfill sites, they are made to pay exorbitant amounts to be able to dispose of the rubbish. So the first thing we need to put in place is provide lots of dustbins around for people to easily dispose of their rubbish. We should try as much as possible to segregate our waste, so we don't add biodegradable or organic stuff with the plastics, because the plastics will not break down. So we separate the plastics from the biodegradable stuff. And this can be done if you have the government giving her support, you have individuals coming on board, because the little change that you as an individual will bring on board collectively will create a significant impact. Again, we can use the youth in a very positive way. We can start a movement. So as a church, you can start a movement. You have social media handles where you can have some hashtags. And trust you me, before you realize, this, together with support of other influencers and all that, will generate a wave that will help us to eradicate all these things. Look at what happened to the Galamsey thing. From nowhere, it became a topical issue. We can also start something like that. We have the young ones who are digital, so they'll be putting information out there, here and there. And it will interest you that this is the time that innovation will just come up from nowhere. 3 days ago, I was watching a documentary, and there's this guy from one of the African countries who got an award, a UN award, on managing plastics. And what this guy did was, with his team, you know, when you go on the Volta River, we have this water weeds called hyacinth. They grow on the water a lot, even on the Densu River and all that. So this guy has managed to find a way of harvesting the water hyacinth, extracting the sap from the hyacinth, and creating a pseudo-plastic. So a plastic which is not made up from hydrocarbon from crude oil, but from organic substance. And that, with time, will break down in the environment. So if you should dispose of it and it ends up in the soil or water, with time it will break down. Yeah. If we start going down that line, it is going to help us a lot. You sitting here right now, I can just mention a lot of plastics on you as a human being, myself. And to the extent that our ladies who God has given you natural eyelashes, and you go and continue it with something else. All these are plastics. Your nails, acrylic, and all that. These are all plastics. So as an individual, you are even encouraging the use of these plastics. And I'm wondering if microplastics that you have not created ends up in your system. Having these lashes, and I think that should be my next research. With all these acrylic, whatever thing, the chances of you increasing the plastics inside of you is a different thing altogether. Okay? I may have not mentioned this, but we have primary plastics or microplastics, and we have secondary microplastics. What we are seeing now is the length of the microplastics inside our systems or inside the fishes, the gastropods, these are the snails we feed on, are getting smaller by the day, significantly. And what it means is that inside the system, probably, this is something we are yet to test though, but what it means is the digestive system is able to further break it down into smaller, something that used to be small already, into smaller, should I say, versions of the original one. And when you feed on the fishes, you pick up these smaller ones, one way or the other, you are able to pass it on to a different organism, but then your system would have further broken down the smaller one into minute components. So if you are not creating it, and now you are having smaller versions inside of you, and you are now having all these lashes, these plastics on you, then I wonder what our system will be made up of in no time. So it is important for us, as much as possible, to use the youth, the future generation, to start a movement to create awareness of this plastic pollution, further expose people to the occurrence of microplastics in our food, our water, the air we breathe, and all the associated risk they come with. If we are able to do this, trust you me, when people are sensitized, we are going to limit the intake of plastic into our system. And also, the government should try and decentralize development. There is a study that says that there is a strong correlation between population and filth. As we speak now, Accra is just around 5.7, our population, 5.7 million. Kumasi is also around 5.6 million. But if you look at the number of people per square meter in Accra, it's several times higher than that of Kumasi, because Accra is very small as compared to Kumasi. And if you are having more or less similar densities of humans, then it means that the density per square meter in Accra is several times higher than that of Kumasi, which also translates into sanitation. So globally, you realize that the very poor countries are associated with filth. So when people are, the UN goals, people are looking at different things, very important things, we are looking at poverty in this part of the country. We are addressing issues of poverty. Then we link poverty to life under water, life on land, because there is a strong connection here. So once you've not solved your basic needs, it's very difficult to achieve self-actualization. Abraham Maslow's theory, you know that.
Yeah.
This is a country we are now dealing with basic needs. How do we achieve self-actualization? So when they say there's a successful person in the country, I respect the person a lot. Because if you're able to overcome all these challenges, these basic challenges, and you've attained that kind of a pedigree. So I respect them a lot. So let's start a movement. Maybe Resurrection Congregation can start that. A movement of creating awareness of plastic pollution and also exposing people to microplastic pollution.
Okay, we can start a movement. We have some questions on our social media platforms, but before I read out the question, I would also like to add that I think comparing, I'm not too old, but comparing the past to now, I know that there were a lot of jingles when it has to do with advertisement. And I think that is also an avenue we can explore.
Yeah.
I'll give an example. So when I was relatively young, I'm young, but then, yes, there was this ad, Ricochet mix, so tasty, so quick, yes. And a family friend of mine, we wanted to try that product. So we asked my mom to get it for us. And I know that on every product, there's an instruction on it.
Yeah.
But as children as we are, when we wanted to prepare that shito,
Yes.
we were behind the fire and we're singing.
Yes.
I add some water, so
Yes.
tasty, then she'll add it.
Yes.
I make a paste. So I think that is also an avenue, because if it is something that keeps ringing in our ears,
Very true.
it is, we would just keep to the norm. We know that do not litter, do not do this, do not do this. And so the government can look at how best they can help us through that.
Yeah.
The youth too are influencers. They can look at this avenue and then it will go a long way to help us. Yes, so we'll go to our questions. Doc, we have quite a number of questions here. And we appreciate the questions from our viewers. We see Gerald Sasraku. He's asking, so would we say that our pure water is not safe? Is our pure water safe, Doc?
The whole universe is not safe in the first place. The whole universe is not safe. And maybe I'll answer this question from different perspectives. So as a Christian, we only live by grace. We only live by grace. Because trust you me, if you look at the risk this body we call ours is subjected to, and day in, day out, we are able to survive the hardship of this world, then it's only by grace. And scientifically, this body also has a tolerance level. So it's able to take up lots of contamination, lots of pollution, until it reaches a certain threshold. Now, when it gets there, that is when it gives you the feedback. So our environment, we've been polluting the environment since, I don't know. But we are now getting the feedbacks because the environment has now gotten to that threshold, all right? Currently, we are experiencing heat waves we call climate change. This is not the first time we are having climate change. It happened in the past. I hope you've heard of Ice Age and all those kind of things. Yes, they've all happened in the past. It's a cycle. So you subject the earth to a certain pressure, it accommodates it, and then it throws it back at you. Once it does that, it uses that period to overhaul itself and reset again. All right? So we can't say that don't drink the sachet water because scientifically what we are seeing is telling us that there's a huge question mark somewhere. Even the bottled water that we are saying is safer, we are still seeing the plastics in them. But we try as much as possible to prevent exposing our system to numerous plastics. So that is why you need to be filtering and all that. I've given certain measures you can put in place. But we cannot do away with water. Trust me, we can't do away. Even when you solve the problem of water, you still have the air to deal with. So we try as much as possible to protect ourselves from all these exposures. Yeah.
Okay. There's also a question here that says, there was a report that our dump site is almost full, and we are just few weeks away. How true is this, and what is the way forward?
Oh, yes. I am not in the position to answer this well, but what I know is definitely that is true, even to the extent that they are now creating new areas, which just actually came into existence some couple of months back. So there is even one at Oblogo now. In fact, that area used to be my study area. I didn't know there was a landfill site there until I went to the field with my students 2 months ago. And I was told the site just came out of nowhere about 3-4 months before. So it's like people are looking for opportunities. And trust you me, if you want to make money, be looking at waste management in the country. That is it. So there is a whole cartel when it comes to this landfill side thing. And this is not our purpose here. I would have walked you through. And that is why people in leadership positions are offering lands for these lands to be used as landfill sites. Instead of trying to recycle our waste, if you want to just be dumping everything there, definitely it will get to a point that we will not have any landfill sites again. And no wonder we have a lot of rubbish or waste on our roads. They will be in the roads for 2-3 days. Nobody comes for them. It rains and washes back into there. Because we don't have any landfill sites to send these things to. So yes, we are sitting on a time bomb. And that I would wish you have someone from the municipal or district assembly to be handling such questions. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have this last question. Samuel Obodai is asking, who is more responsible for environmental damage, the individual or the government?
The individual. Who makes up the government? You and I. So it's the individual. And that's what I'm saying, that listen, if in your small corner you brighten it, in my small corner I also brighten it, together we are able to what? Share whatever lessons we've learned to other people. And before we realize, we've been able to infect people with our change of life. So the individual is very, very important. Trust me, government can come with all the policies. If the individuals decide not to work with those policies, we'll still be at square one. Yes.
Okay, MK Chikpa says, wonderful discussion. The use of plastics is like the use of AI. Plastics are generally used because of their special properties. In managing plastics, use the 3 R's. They are very important. Reduction in the use of plastics, reuse, and recycling of the used plastics.
Yeah.
So soon, we have come to the end of our podcast for today. And I'm proudly sponsored by Swiss Ice Drinking Water and D's Classics. I hope we have actually enjoyed this conversation. But then let us remember that yen ara yasasini eya boarding ding emayeng. Wadenche was shikpon lene. Wadenche was shikpon lene. Yes. Ni edrawa ke hawofen. I know we can sing it. Yes. So I won't sing it for us. But then with the language that you understand, just sing it. And then think of the words. It's our own land, and it is priceless to us. I will appreciate my viewers, and I'll appreciate my production team. And until we meet again and we come to your screens again, it's still the RessHour Podcast. I have been your host for today, Carissa Ifua Enim. Thank you very much.
Conversations, Center.